All right, so I just want to introduce Rick Collins. Rick is an attorney in New York. His firm is on Long Island. Rick is a criminal lawyer. His firm, though, handles criminal and civil matters. Rick, in addition to handling the standard criminal matters, has a specialty practice in which he handles criminal defense focusing on PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs, which is I find a very interesting topic, and I wanted to speak to him about a little bit today. This is a little different than my normal podcast. Rick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Well, hello, everybody. I'm at home. We're under somewhat of a lock and key situation here in New York, the epicenter of COVID-19, or at least has been up until now. I know that it's moving outside of New York a little bit. So we've got the same sort of lockdown that's now, spreading out across the country. The courts are closed, the gyms are closed, which is something that I think affects you and I a lot. Yeah. But yeah, so it's and our office is basically working remotely from home. So this is something that's affecting a lot of lawyers. I'm the president of the Nassau County Bar Association, which is a 120-year-old organization. One of the largest suburban bar associations in the country. So I deal a lot with the concerns of members of the legal profession. And so this is impacting all businesses, especially small businesses, of which a lot of lawyers are in small firms, small private practice firms. So I do that. And as you said, I have a unique practice. I'm probably the only lawyer that really does what I do. It's virtually all that I do. So it's kind of where, I like to say, it's where bodybuilding and fitness intersect with the law. So I've represented more people on anabolic steroid types of problems, whether it's importing or using or violating anti-doping policies, or possessing or transporting, distributing. And I also represent a lot of companies in the sports nutrition space. So virtually anything that makes people bigger, faster, stronger, legal, illegal, or somewhere in between is my bailiwick. I have a national practice. I've practiced all over the country. So I've had the privilege of being in courthouses and working with local counsel all across the country. I've gotten to go to some very cool places, giving lectures in this area, including Bangkok, Thailand, and I was actually in Guangzhou, China, a year and a half ago. So I'm lucky I was in China when I was, because I don't think I'll be going back for the foreseeable future. But that was just an amazing experience. And I had to get a work visa in order to even get in, and to experience it was really an amazing time.
Yeah, I mean.
So thank you for having me on.
Oh, well, thank you. Just to follow up on that, I heard that this all started, in China, but eating bats of some sort, eating bats. That's what they're claiming. Yeah. One of the theories is that's how it started. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I guess we can all speculate. I think there's some bat connection, but there's also a biological laboratory in Wuhan, about 5 miles from that wet market, which has been deemed the epicenter of China for where the virus originated. So whether there's some connection to that biolab, I know that they were doing work in the area of viruses and whatnot. And so if you go online, you can read both sides of that. You can read the most conspiracy theory perspectives, right, which are that this was a biological weapon, designed to effectuate some political ends. Or it could just be that eating bad bat can get you into some trouble. I didn't eat any bats when I was in China, and I'm definitely glad about that.
So obviously, New York is getting hit hard. With regards to, I want to focus a little bit on the practice of law, just because I know that my listeners and readers are come to me and you for representation. So a lot of people have been calling our firm. Now we're shut down, we're operating remotely, but I'm still appearing in court. And I told you before we got started, I was actually in court on Saturday morning doing a pretty interesting bail argument for a SEPTA bus driver who was charged with just an assault charge, which turned into like an all-out war in court. Now in New York, what hearings, if any, are still being done?
So we're still doing emergency hearings, incarcerated inmates who might need to be released, obviously arraignments for those who immediately get arrested and need to go in front of the judge. But most things are shut down here. And there was a memo that came out recently, and I think this is happening in a lot of jurisdictions, to try to migrate to virtual appearances. And I've been doing that a little bit here and there.
I just did one.
Yeah, did you? Yeah.
I did one in New Jersey.
State or federal?
It was state. It was state.
Okay.
It was a detention hearing because, as you may know, in New Jersey now, it's bail reform. So basically, they're doing there's no more cash bail. It's either you're released or you're not released. And it's the way we did it in the Army. I was a prosecutor in the military prior to going to private practice. And the way it was there was pretty much pre-trial detention. Either you were in or you were out. And that's what's happening in Jersey. So I did it remotely on, I think it was last Tuesday. And I wasn't successful, but it was.
You win some, you lose some, but that's where it's going, I think.
Yes.
And I think we're going to see more and more of that happening in both state and federal courts, where lawyers, litigants will be able to make some appearances virtually, save travel expenses, save the physical presence in the courtroom, save exposure to this virus or any future viruses. So I think that's going to happen.
So, not to cut you off, but I mean, so you believe going forward, when all this is over and life hopefully is back to normal, whenever that is, I'm hoping that it's April 30th. But I mean, please, but I'm hoping. But you believe, because I actually believe the same thing, that what's happening now, these remote appearances, will go on after, because we're going to find that it's helpful.
Well, one of the concerns is the CDC is basically saying that for up to a year, we need to have some level of social distancing. So how's that going to affect, for example, jury trials, where our courthouses here in Nassau County are constructed so that the jury rooms are small rooms, the windows don't open. How are you going to put people into confined spaces? So we really are going to have to rethink how we practice. Even the courtrooms, how do you separate jurors? How do you separate litigants? How do you separate the spectator section with a 6-foot distance between people? You're not really going to be able to do that. So we're going to have to adapt. And I think we've been adapting as a society. I think we were moving in that direction for the last few years. I have friends who don't leave the house hardly. They work from home. They shop on Instacarts, or all their groceries are coming. When they want to go to a restaurant, they order in Uber Eats. So Netflix instead of a movie theater. There are so many ways now of adapting your life to a more remote, more home-based existence. And there are lawyers now who are now working from home to a degree that didn't exist 20 years ago. And I think that now, as more companies are beginning to even think about having their employees work permanently from home and saving all the office overhead. I mean, if you've got 4 floors in a Manhattan building for a whole lot of cubicles, and now, at least for now, you're being forced for those workers to be home. And if you don't really see a diminishing of the productivity of those workers, why wouldn't you just continue to have them work from home and forget about those, do 1 floor in the building and give back the other 3 and cut your expenses by 75%? Just makes sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, one of my lead assistants here is actually, for the most part, remote now. Prior to this happening, because she has some childcare issues. And
Sure.
Really, it's worked out great. I mean, the work didn't diminish at all. In some ways, it actually got a little better because, I mean, really, her hours, because really, a happy employee is a more productive employee. That's what I feel. So if you can somehow modify a person's schedule to make them happy and productive, it's a win-win.
Yeah. And I think that's going to continue. And obviously, some lawyers are hit by this more than others. So you and I are more courtroom based. So litigators, when the courts are closed, have a heavier hit on day-to-day practice and, the volume of work. Transactional lawyers who were doing contracts or reviewing things at home, or even in their offices up until now and now doing it at home, they and their staff, I think, are much less affected by the brunt of it. Still affected, but not to the same degree.
So in terms of, I guess, client services and advising clients and speaking to clients, I mean, right now, everyone's trying to stay home, obviously, shelter in place. I mean, I found that, this is a great way of communicating with clients, via Zoom or Skype. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I believe that after this is over, some clients may actually say, hey, do you have Zoom capabilities? Or because some clients, especially even the younger clients, who perhaps just have busy lives for whatever reason, don't have time to come in to see a lawyer. And I mean, we can do everything pretty much online, but some clients do want to come in and see you in person.
Right.
But right now with the shutdown, I mean, we're trying to do pretty much everything remote.
Right.
I mean, so obviously, but if I have to go to court, if I have to go to court, I will. The example Saturday where bail was going to be an issue, I wasn't going to handle it remote because as much as the remote looks great and sounds great, I guess, when it's not the same thing, you're right. And in that situation, I felt very strongly that if I wasn't physically there in court, it was going to make a difference. Right. I mean, I believe that you would probably feel the same way in some places, just in terms of.
Absolutely. But there will be situations where it will be more convenient and easier to do it remotely. I did do in federal court, I did actually a guilty plea in federal court by video. So the client, the defendant and I were standing together in a law office, and in a different state, the prosecutor, local counsel, and the judge were present. And I had set up my laptop on a table, and it was kind of filming up. It was a beautiful law office, but it had kind of like pipes and like exposed ceiling pipes, that kind of look. And so the judge, when he's looking at it, he's like, so, Mr. Collins, are you in some sort of a bunker? And I'm like, I'd actually pick up the laptop and show him, no, Judge, we're in a very palatial office. And he was laughing. But that was the first time I did a full, waiver of indictment, process, plea by information and guilty plea from, 1,000 miles away, literally.
So in terms of offenses during this time and crimes, obviously crime is going to occur, all the time. It's just, you never actually know when a person's going to need a criminal lawyer. But what crimes or offenses do you see a possible spike in during this?
Well, I think when you have people who are relatives, family members confined in a space for a period of time, I think you're going to have squabbles. And so I think we'll see an increase in domestic violence. From what I understand, what we're seeing now in the courthouse is predominantly domestic violence situations or angry neighbors who get in each other's spaces as you were describing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that we're going to see. But the roads here are, the volume of traffic is minimal. People are generally not going, the bars are closed. So, drunk driving has wildly diminished. And from what I've heard from some of my friends in law enforcement is it's basically, unless it's a very serious situation, a lot of things I think are kind of being overlooked now. So I don't think the arrests are taking place like they would. And here in Nassau County, we typically had something like maybe 60 arraignments a day, each day. And we're now down to maybe 10 or so. So we're seeing a wild reduction in arrests.
So in Philadelphia now, there was a policy put in place by the district attorney here that I guess that was pushed through the police department as well, that they weren't arresting people for minor drug offenses and things like that. Now,
giving a summons, right?
They're getting a summons.
Giving them a summons, yeah.
And, I guess he caught a lot of heat here because you may know his name is Larry Crasner. and he's a former, pretty well-known criminal defense lawyer who was never a prosecutor, was a former federal public defender, pretty, I guess, on the liberal side of things,
Right.
ran for DA. Our prior DA got in some trouble federally, ended up going to jail.
Oops. Yeah.
So after that fallout, a bunch of people ran for district attorney. He was very well funded, was elected, and he's made some changes to the office, but this particular policy right now is catching a lot of heat. And I've told clients, you're still being prosecuted. You're just being given a summons, and if you don't, so it's the same way in New York, I would imagine, right? I mean, they're being given summons.
Yeah, we've definitely migrated towards summonses rather than arrests, and when there are arrests, like you said, the cash bail system from the old days is pretty much done. So, and I think that's happening throughout the country at this point. So, which what we also have, and you probably saw in the news, there's a issue here going on where people are.
I just lost you, Rick. I just lost you.
Oh, there we go. I just had a call coming through, and I had to decline. So we have a situation where we have jails at Rikers Island, for example, here that people have been trying to close for a long time, and it's still in that process of closure. And so there are petitions to let people out early, so people who are serving, jail sentences of a year or less, they're going to be released in, let's say, 3 months. And so the petition would be, given the fact that the COVID-19 virus can spread so quickly and you've got inmates confined in a space and they're going to get out soon anyway, do we really want to hold them so that they all get COVID-19 and then come out, or do we want to get them out of there before they contract it? So the leaning is to letting people out, even if it's short of their sentence. And of course, that got a huge backlash from the community, saying somewhat hyperbolic and thinking these are murderers and rapists who are, serving, 30-year sentences, who are walking out after a couple of months. And of course, that's not what's happening.
I actually have 2 cases like that. I'm going to argue a motion on Thursday in Atlantic County, New Jersey, which is by the shore, Mays Landing area by the Jersey Shore, and I'm doing a motion on that case, it's a motion for release because of the COVID-19, and then I'm doing another motion. It hasn't been scheduled yet, but I imagine it's going to be scheduled probably Friday, perhaps, in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, which is about 12 miles outside of Philadelphia in Norristown. But again, same issue. Both people are going to be paroled in around August or so. So that's my whole point, is that, and then one person is actually, she's fairly young. She's in her early 20s and she's a mother. And I said, she's going to be exposed to this potentially, and then she's going to go home and affect her kids. And
that's the thing. Yeah. So, I think people are looking at it just as overly sympathetic to quote unquote criminals, but you really have to take it a step further and look at, well, what about our protection? What about the public protection? And do we want people to be exposed to the virus that don't need to be, who are then going to come out into the population in a very short period of time? So, so those are some of the issues we have here in New York going on.
So now one of your practice areas is the defense of PEDs, performance enhancing drugs. I represent people charged with drugs. I really don't represent anyone charged with anabolics, or I think I had one case recently, but it was a gun case where they found some anabolics as well. But quite frankly, he had so many guns that they kind of just said,
secondary issue, yeah,
it's a federal case, but he had this bunker of 54 guns, so they really didn't care so much about the small amount of steroids that he had in his possession. They kind of said, well, we're after you for the guns here. So, the client questions that I always receive are, possession versus possession intent to distribute. Now, when it comes to drugs like cocaine and heroin, I tell clients, it isn't always the amount, because if they have an observed transaction, well, the amount is irrelevant. it goes toward the egregiousness of the offense, but really they have enough to make their case as far as distribution or sale. Mm-hmm. Now, where there isn't an observed transaction and there's circumstantial evidence of an intent to sell, we look at things like, baggies, scales, money, other paraphernalia in a person's possession. Now,
or sheer volume, right? Or the sheer volume.
But even volume sometimes, if it's not individually packaged, if it's just for instance, marijuana. I did a case a couple months ago where a kid had 2 pounds of marijuana on him in the car. But it was just 2 big pounds of marijuana, and no observed transactions, not a lot of money on him, and just he wanted to party with his friends, and But as far as being able to establish distribution, he didn't have enough because there was no intent, based on and so in those cases, the prosecution, and it's probably the same in your cases, they're required to produce some expert to testify as to intent to sell, and without that, they have a hard time just going off the volume. Now, obviously, if the volume is excessive, but could you kind of explain that in the case of anabolics or,
Yeah. The issue does come up a lot with anabolics because they're typically packaged in a way that would be either in tablets or in small vials, typically like 10 milliliter vials. And so you might have, for example, let's say somebody is caught in a car with 1,000 tablets of a particular anabolic steroid. What you'll have is a local prosecutor who'll look at that case and think of that in the same way that he might see 1,000 tabs of ecstasy, right? Okay. So if you've got 1,000 tablets of ecstasy, that alone might be enough volume for a jury to believe that person that's not personal use, that's for distribution. And so I've dealt with many cases where the state has charged a possession with intent to distribute with virtually no other evidence supporting that other than, let's say it's 1,000 tablets. And I've been able to show that in that case, and there was a very popular steroid called Anabol, which was a methandrostenolone, or what used to be called D-bol or Dianabol, popular oral steroid. And Anabol was a version that came from Thailand in little pink pentagon-shaped tablets. And the minimum order that you would get by ordering it online from Thailand was 1,000 tablets, which would come in a tub. So if you wanted it for personal use, you couldn't get any less. That was where you started. So I've had to ultimately educate prosecutors and courts in order to scale back that initial charge of a possession with intent when there really was no evidence of any such intent. And as you know, steroid users typically buy enough to get through what's called a cycle of use. So unlike the purchasing habits of, let's say, a heroin addict who goes out, or a meth, you go out, you get enough to get high, you get high, then you're not high anymore, and you go out and you get more to get high again. And so it's this, revolving door of transactions. Steroid users will plan out, or sometimes meticulously, a period of use that will be very often sophisticated, combining oral steroids and injectable steroids of different types for different effects, along with some ancillary medications, which will control some of the side effects that can come from steroid use. And they will typically buy enough for the whole cycle, which could be a 6-week cycle, could be a 6-month cycle. Some of these guys, it could be a 12-month cycle, but they will buy enough to get them through because they wouldn't want to get cut short because they planned it all out. So you need to have, before you start the cycle, you need your full cycle available. And so I've seen guys who either will order all of that, or who the police come into the house for whatever reason that they had probable cause, and they find this variety, this cornucopia of different anabolics. And I've heard the quote, we got a whole lab in here, you know, and this is just this man's cycle, particularly if he's a competitive bodybuilder or a really hardcore, you know, steroid user. You may see 5 or even 10 different steroids and different types of medications to control the effects. So very often, my experience is that law enforcement and courts really don't understand the realities of how people use steroids, or even of who's using steroids. As you know, you pick up a paper or you watch the news, and the two populations that get all the attention on steroids are cheating athletes, you know, pro athletes, elite athletes, Major League Baseball players, you know, and teenagers. And so you would think that that's kind of the universe if you relied on the media of steroid users. The reality is those are a very, very, very small percentage of the steroid using population, most of them are men, most of them are 25, 35, 45, who are using steroids not for performance per se, but really for appearance. We're a very vain society, you know, appearance. Everybody wants a set of abs. Everybody wants a six-pack. Everybody wants to look better on the beach. Men do. Women have their own. You know, we live in a cosmetic surgery capital. And so I think what we've found, and I was part of a research team that looked into this and published a journal piece about it. But what we found is the motivation of most people using steroids is much closer to the motivations of people looking for cosmetic surgery and cosmetic, you know, medical procedures than it is to, you know, somebody using heroin or cocaine or any drug for some sort of other type of effect.
So do most clients come to you because they've been charged following a search of their home or their business because the police are in search of something else? Or are they coming to you because there was some or the majority coming because there's some sting operation or surveillance being done at a gym, or, you know, they've received some anonymous tips that, you know, this trainer is selling steroids at this gym? Or, I mean, what's the typical client look like?
So it's adapted. You know, where there is basic economic principle, where there is demand, there will be supply, right? So if you go back just from a quick, you know, short history lesson, back in the day, back in the 80s, before Congress got involved with steroids were like super vitamins to a lot of guys. It was a small population using them, and they were mostly products that were diverted from medical and pharmaceutical companies, so that it was FDA approved products that were kind of backdoored out to bodybuilders and people who wanted to get the effects on the body. When Congress enacted a law that made steroids a controlled substance, Big Pharma kind of dropped out of the picture. So there was no longer the same supply of FDA approved medication. What happens if there's demand and no supply? The black market takes over. And so the black market has morphed through a few incarnations, from Mexican veterinary lab suppliers to European finished product suppliers. The way it is now is mostly it's Chinese powders, which are brought into the US mislabeled as creatine or some sort of amino acid, typically ordered to a location of a remailer who will then ship it, because as you know, domestic mail can't be opened without a warrant, but international mail, like a border crossing, can be opened without a warrant. So you want that protection in the mail. And so the remail takes it, he mails it to a cook who is an underground lab guy, basically, who takes that powder and esterifies it, mixes it with some type of carrying oil, whether it's cottonseed oil or some type of vegetable oil, with some sodium benzoate and benzyl alcohol as preservatives, cook it up in beakers, heat it, put it into vials, slap a label on it made by through a home printer, and sell it on Reddit or Instagram. And that is now the steroid market. So the federal government is after guys who are doing that. And so they're interested in people who are these underground labs. And a lot of my clients are underground lab guys who are supplying steroids to mostly fitness enthusiasts who are looking to look better on the beach when summer comes. In some cases, years ago, when finished products would come into the U.S. more than they do now, sometimes customs would catch them and they would deliver them to the designated recipient in what's called a controlled delivery. And a controlled delivery is where the package is brought to the mail to the whoever through the mail, somebody dressed up as a postal carrier, but actually an undercover agent, and knocks on the door and says, you know, here you go, Miss Gambone, is this, here's your package. And as soon as you take it, that you're in possession of it. And now there's 20 federal agents who are hiding in the bushes around your house and neighborhood who now rush in and conduct a search of your entire home, taking your computer, any steroids that are in there, anything that would link you to bodybuilding or steroid use, and so you would then be charged. So I've handled a lot of cases like that, but I've also had, you know, it runs the gamut. I've had a disgruntled spouse call the local police department and say, you know, my husband, he's got steroids, you know, in the process of a divorce or a separation, and suddenly the police come. I've also had car stops where the police are, you know, it's a ticket. It's something having nothing to do with steroids, but there they are on the front seat. And so he winds up getting charged. Maybe he just picked it up at the post office. Obviously, there's a lot of snitching that goes on. And so one guy who gets arrested will sometimes say, well, there's a bunch of other guys selling steroids and here's who they are. And so most of my clients, I would say most of my clients are male, typically between the age of 25 and 50, mostly gainfully employed, mostly with no prior criminal history. Most of them bodybuilders and steroid users themselves who started out as users and then realized that they could make it themselves for themselves, and then realized, well, if I like it, so if it's working for me, I can make some money out of this. And then they gradually become, you know, underground lab guys. And so there's a lot of that. Most of my cases now are federal, although I have handled a lot of state cases, and I've handled state and federal cases across the country because I think, you know, this is a different population than the typical drug offender, you know, and I think a lot of the guys in the steroid world, you know, we could debate it and discuss it, but they believe that the government really is overreaching in its treatment of steroids as a controlled substance in the same way that heroin, cocaine, and oxy is treated. They're typical libertarian mindsets on this. And I think many of them believe that while steroids have side effects and potentially very serious side effects, they believe that the side effects are overstated by the media and exaggerated by the media, with some credence to that position. Okay. And so they don't like having a lawyer who they feel is going to judge them or look at them like a heroin dealer or a cocaine dealer. They want somebody who understands the world. And they know that I was a competitive bodybuilder. They know that I used to run a personal training business. I've been in the gym world, heavily in the gym world for many, many years. I'm counsel to the International Federation of Bodybuilders Pro League. So I know a lot of the top pro bodybuilders. I'm very, very familiar with the, you know, with the atmosphere and the landscape. And I'm completely non-judgmental about it, and I understand it. And I think they believe that I can advocate for them in a way that virtually nobody else can. And I believe that too. And I, you know, I love what I do. I haven't represented anybody on a cocaine or heroin or, you know, I like to say I'm probably one of the few criminal defense lawyers in the world who almost never, I can't think of the most recent time I've ever had to represent anybody even alleged to have hurt somebody, you know, in sexually, physically, economically, fiscally, you know, in any way other than in the context of anabolic steroids or, you know, some type of vitamin or sports nutrition sort of concept. So, you know, I love what I do. I get up in the morning. I'm so happy. You know, there are a lot of lawyers and, you know, who you know, kvetch and they're unhappy and they, you know, like there are, you know, people sometimes, but I get up in the morning. I tell you, I love what I do. I love my client base. They're typically guys who, if you or I were in a gym together, they're the guys who would be spotting us.
Okay.
You know, they're the guys that we would see every day. And you know, they made mistakes. You know, they've done things that clearly the government says are illegal, and they have to ultimately, you know, need good representation and counsel on those things. But I couldn't feel better about what I do.
So in terms of, I guess, the steroids that are Schedule 3 drugs?
They are.
Schedule
yes.
3. So they're, in terms of sentencing, in the cases where, you know, there is no strong defense for a pretrial motion to suppress, or there's not a real strong trial argument, and you have to negotiate a plea or do an open plea in front of a judge, the sentencing guidelines, I would imagine, are lesser than for drugs such as heroin and cocaine, and because they're Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 drugs.
They are, yeah. So the guy, you know, a guy on a big cocaine case might be looking at, you know, 5-year like mandatory minimums, you know, of 5, or, you know, or might be looking at 7 years or 10 years. Most steroid defendants are not looking at that kind of time. They're looking at lesser time, whether even a bigger lab guy might be looking at 3 years or 5 years or something like that, but without a mandatory minimum. So good lawyering can really bring that down. And as you know, there are ways of kind of avoiding the guidelines, or reducing, or coming up with other sentencing factors by statute that would help, you know. And so so good lawyering can do a lot for these guys. But even though they might not be looking at the same sort of time that somebody on a cocaine case might be looking at, these are guys who are typically have no prior record. They're gainfully employed. Maybe they're married. Maybe they got little kids at home. So even, you know, any incarceration for these guys has an impact. Just a felony conviction. And as you know, while most states have some sort of remedy where after a period of time you can get a conviction expunged or sealed so that it doesn't hang around your neck for your life. Right. Federal cases, under the federal court system, there is no expungement. There is no, it's forever. So you're forever disabled from, you know, really pursuing the American dream because of something you did 5, 10, 15, 30 years before. And that's something I'd like to see changed. I've been working on that through the American Bar Association and the New York State Bar Association to try to get a federal sealing or expungement law in place.
Yeah, you know, clients sometimes come to me and they have cases that have already happened in the past, and they have a new charge, and they say, you know, I had some trouble about 10 years ago, but it wasn't that serious. I got probation for it. And I look it up, and it's a felony. And I said, well, I said, it's a felony conviction. They said, well, I didn't go to jail. And I said, well, just because you didn't go to jail doesn't mean that it wasn't serious. I said, you have to understand that there's a big difference between a felony offense and a misdemeanor offense. So you always can't just assume that it's a good deal because you're not being given a jail sentence. I said, because you have to really understand the difference. And that's why, I mean, you, like me, I would imagine, spend a great deal of time explaining to a client the difference between a felony and a misdemeanor charge, and why, you know, it's so important that we, you know, either negotiate something, or why we could go to trial on something. You know, a lot of times it's possibly better not to go to trial because you've been offered something that really you wouldn't do any better than at trial. So it's really it's the way to go. So Rick, I mean, I just want to, where can people find you if they are charged with these type of offenses and drugs?
Sure. So best place to start would be my website at steroidlaw.com, steroidlaw.com. There's a blog there. There's lots of information about the sorts of things that we've talked about. I'm very active on social media, so I invite everybody to follow me, Rick Collins ESQ. You can follow me on Twitter or on Instagram. And I try to put a mix of fitness and bodybuilding information as well as legal information, and let people know what's going on with my life. You know, I love what I do, and I try to keep, even though I've somewhat got a monopoly on these types of cases nationwide, I try to keep my fees reasonable so that anybody who really wants help in this area can afford it, because I love what I do and I love helping people. So I invite you to stop by and visit any of my social media sites.
Last question. Right now, with all the shutdown, gyms, where are you working out at?
Oh, man. Well, if you go to my Instagram page, I posted a little video. So little by little, I'm adding little pieces of equipment to my home gym. I haven't trained in a home environment in 20 years. So I'm blessed to live close to what I think is the best gym in the country. It's Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym here on Long Island, or on Strong Island, as we like to call it. And it's a fantastic gym. And of course, now it's closed. So I have some power blocks. I just bought some adjustable dumbbells. I've just added, I've been doing some knuckle push-ups and on the carpet in the basement. Of course, now my knuckles are all scraped up. So I just got some little perfect push-up handles. I've got some over-the-door bands coming to be able to do some lat pull-downs. So I'll put pictures of it up on Instagram as I go along. But there's no reason why you can't get a workout in. You can always get some equipment, although I've heard a friend of mine tried to order the same dumbbells I did, and they're out of stock. So everybody's jumped in. But, push-ups are, you can do slow push-ups and high rep push-ups and limited rest. You can get a workout no matter what.
Yeah, what's crazy, these things are all gone. Gym equipment, barbells, dumbbells, and also now hair cutting equipment. Like clippers. Right. Believe it or not, if you go on Amazon and try to buy clippers, you can't buy them. You can't find them. They're all gone. And all fitness equipment, even like kettlebells, they're all like fitness factories. Fitness factories shut down. Rogue, I think, their online store is still operating. Other Kettlebell Kings, most of their stuff is all gone. So all these fitness.
Yeah, you got to train at home.
Yeah, so either they're doing very well because they've sold out, or they've been shut down and just simply can't operate at all because of the shutdown. So I don't know, what's happening, but that's.
And you're working out at home also. You got a little gym set up there, so you're okay.
I have 2 kids, and 6 and 8, so they keep me busy. So I actually put a gym in my garage, pretty nice gym. I have a squat rack at about 600 pounds of weights, and a dumbbell rack that goes from 10 to 80 pounds, a treadmill, chin-up bars, and all that stuff. A leg press too. So if
I was closer, I'd come over.
Yes. So when all this is over, perhaps I'll come up there to Bev Francis's gym. I've never been there, but I've heard about it. So I would like to go see it. So obviously work out.
The variety of equipment, the quality of the equipment, it's fantastic.
Great. So Rick, I want to thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk soon. If I have any questions, obviously, I'm going to hit you up. Hopefully my listeners and my readers will do the same. This is Rick Collins, great lawyer out of New York. Rick, I want to thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on. Stay safe, everybody.
You too, Rick. Thanks. Let me just. Great. I think we're off. Good.
All right.
One second. One second.
Okay.